we're up in passing lanes, defending hard, active hands, things like that. I think that's what leads to.
The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark's long-anticipated return from injury was supposed to be the turning point of the Indiana Fever season. After missing 5 games due to a groin injury, including the team's Commissioner's Cup championship victory, Clark was finally back. The stakes were high. The crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse was buzzing. The lights were bright. And yet, within 4 quarters, that hopeful electricity turned into stunned silence as the Fever were dismantled 80-61 by the Golden State Valkyries, an expansion team in name only, but not in dominance. The defeat wasn't just disappointing. It was damning. The return of Caitlin Clark should have been triumphant. Just 1 week earlier, the Fever had shocked the league by crushing 2 of its most powerful franchises. The Las Vegas Aces, led by A'ja Wilson, and the Minnesota Lynx, led by Nafisa Collier. Without Clark, they looked cohesive, organized, even dangerous.
Yeah, I feel like at this point I'm pretty used to it, and I always tell people, I wouldn't want it any other way,
Now, with her back, they looked broken. But it wasn't Clark who failed to deliver. It was the system that failed her. From the very first possession, something felt off. Instead of reclaiming her natural position as the team's primary ball handler, the floor general, the orchestrator, Clark was relegated to a supporting role. Head coach Stephanie White made the baffling decision to start Ari McDonald at point guard, forcing Clark to play off-ball as a small forward. It was a puzzling move, especially considering how integral Clark's playmaking and leadership have been to this team's offensive rhythm all season. The decision disrupted everything. The flow, the chemistry, the roles that had been painstakingly defined during their recent winning stretch. Worse still, White benched Lexi Hull, one of the team's most reliable defenders and a critical three-point threat.
Sophie, with you being one of just 4 players signed under contract for next season, where do you feel like you guys are at as a group heading into the offseason?
Hull had been a key contributor during the Fever's rise, spacing the floor, defending aggressively, and creating opportunities for others. Her absence wasn't just felt, it was glaring. Without her, the offense stagnated. The defense collapsed. And every minute she spent on the bench, the Valkyries exploited the space and mismatches with surgical precision. The Fever shot just 31% from the field and an abysmal 6 for 27 from 3. They scored only 19 points total in the second and fourth quarters combined. That's not just inefficient basketball. That's offensive collapse. But even more telling than the on-court dysfunction was what happened after the final buzzer. In the post-game press conference, Coach Stephanie White didn't take responsibility. She didn't acknowledge the tactical blunders, the lineup shakeups, or the lack of in-game adjustments. Instead, she turned the spotlight squarely on her players. "I was disappointed because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire," White said. "Our attention to detail was poor." She even questioned the team's discipline and effort, implying that the players either didn't know the game plan or were unwilling to execute it. And that's where the temperature shifted from frustration to full-on crisis. Because while White was busy pointing fingers, Caitlin Clark did something that speaks volumes about her leadership. She owned the failure. Clark stood in front of the cameras and said, "Honestly, I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. But we struggled with the scouting report. We struggled with personnel. We struggled to do what the coaches asked of us." She didn't blame anyone else. She didn't deflect. She accepted the performance for what it was and vowed to improve. That's what leaders do. That's what generational players do. And it's exactly the kind of accountability that this team is lacking at the top. It wasn't just that White made questionable decisions. It's that she made those decisions and then refused to acknowledge their consequences. Putting Clark out of position, sidelining Hull, shrinking Clark's minutes just when the team needed her most, all of it added up to a game plan that self-destructed. But instead of standing by her choices and analyzing what went wrong, White washed her hands of it. Analysts have already started to speculate. Is Stephanie White's system compatible with Caitlin Clark's style of play? Because on paper, they couldn't be more different. White prefers a rigid, control-heavy offense, one that emphasizes discipline and structure. But Clark thrives in chaos. She creates, she adapts, she improvises. She is at her best when the ball is in her hands, dictating tempo, bending defenses, and making the kind of split-second decisions that simply can't be scripted. So when White says Clark needs to be relieved from playing under duress 94 feet, it rings hollow. Because what Clark actually needs is freedom. Freedom to play her position, to lead her team, to be the player who took college basketball by storm and is now transforming the WNBA. Instead, she's being treated like a piece to be moved around in someone else's puzzle. That's not coaching. That's mismanagement. The tension between player and coach may still be simmering under the surface, but the symptoms are boiling over. This loss wasn't an isolated bad game. It was a full system collapse, a sign that the Fever, as currently constructed, may not be able to maximize the extraordinary talent they have. When Clark did have the ball, especially in the third quarter, she immediately changed the game's rhythm. In just a few possessions, she put up 5 points, dished out 4 assists, and grabbed a rebound. The crowd came alive again. The ball started moving. Her impact was undeniable. But instead of leaning into that momentum, White pulled back. She limited Clark's minutes, benched her during key stretches, and failed to adjust the offense to fit what was clearly working. One analyst said it plainly, it looked like they hadn't even practiced that starting lineup. So, what now? The Indiana Fever find themselves at a dangerous crossroads. The coaching decisions are beginning to fracture the chemistry that had made them a contender. The players seem confused. The rotations are inconsistent. The roles are undefined. And the generational talent at the center of it all is being underutilized and, frankly, undermined. It's becoming clearer by the day that this is no longer just about X's and O's. It's about identity. It's about vision. It's about whether the franchise is ready to build around the player who has brought national attention, packed arenas, and elevated the entire WNBA conversation. Or whether they'll continue down a path that slowly pushes that player out the door. Because here's the brutal truth. Clark won't say it publicly, not yet. But the whispers are growing louder. The Fever will have to choose. Do they want Caitlin Clark or do they want Stephanie White? Because they can't have both. Clark is not just a player. She is a brand, a leader, a once-in-a-generation talent. And more importantly, she knows it. She has already demonstrated more composure, poise, and leadership than most veterans in this league. She doesn't need to throw anyone under the bus. She just needs to keep being herself, and eventually, everyone else will have to catch up or get out of the way. So what's the Fever's plan moving forward? Will they realign their system to suit their superstar? Will they build around her instead of bending her into a system that doesn't fit? Or will they continue down this path of wasted potential, poor communication, and mounting frustration? Because here's another hard truth. In 2023, the Indiana Fever averaged just 4,000 fans per home game. Since Clark's arrival, they've sold out arenas. Merchandise is flying off the shelves. Ratings are up. Revenue is up. The league is booming because of her. So ask yourself, do you really want to go back to 4,000 people? The Fever's future hangs in the balance, and that future begins with honest reflection. It begins with acknowledging failure, not just on the court, but on the sideline. The team has all the tools. Clark's vision, Boston's strength in the paint, Mitchell's scoring, Hull's defense and shooting. What they don't have is a coach who can pull it all together consistently. And as the season ticks toward its midpoint, time is running out to make the changes necessary to salvage what could still be a historic year. One more misstep, one more avoidable loss, and the damage might be irreversible. The ball is in Indiana's court. Now they have to decide, are they building a team that serves their star? Or are they burying their future beneath stubborn systems and misguided loyalty? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Is Stephanie White the problem, or is it something deeper? Should Caitlin Clark demand changes, or stay the course? Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on the latest breakdown. The Fever season just got a lot more interesting, and we'll be watching.